from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And welcome to the program. It's America's Late Night National Town Hall Forum. You're welcome to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And the Department of Justice has indicted one of the whistleblowers who alleged that Biden received payments from a Chinese Communist Party affiliated individual. Yep, that's a story that's actually going on today. Now, you wouldn't think that that's actually a real story in America because you would presume that we would never do such a thing in America because somebody who's blowing the whistle saying, no, there's no way that you're doing X, Y, and Z, that somehow this person would be arrested so that they could not appear before Congress or testify. But you'd be wrong. You'd be hard-pressed because that's actually what's going on. The Department of Justice announced multiple indictments against Dr. Gal Luft, the Israeli-American co-director of a Maryland think tank who gained notoriety as the missing witness, quote-unquote, in the investigation into Joe Biden's corruption. The New York Post recently shared a video of Luft wherein he broke down allegations against Biden and made the claims that he had been arrested to prevent him from testifying to the House Oversight Committee with damning evidence against the first family, which many are calling the Biden crime family. So now, long after coming out as a whistleblower, Luft himself has been charged by the Biden Department of Justice, Merrick Garland, etc., for allegedly engaging in multiple serious schemes involving the Chinese and Iranians alongside a former high-ranking U.S. government official. The charges include numerous offenses related to failing to register under, guess what, FARA, the Foreign Agent Registration Act, arms trafficking, Iranian sanctions violations, and making false statements to the federal agents that had spoken with him. Sound familiar? It does to me, because this is the same stuff that they charge people with all the time. False statements. We hear that all the time. And lamentably, this is where we are. People who might be credible or damaging to the administration, they are charged, right? Starting with Donaldus Magnus, Donald Trump. Donald J. Trump, the 45th president of these United States. I like to call him El Trumpito. El Trumpito, he gets charged every now and again. Whenever he starts saying things that make sense, they're like, let's figure out a way to slow this guy down. And we'll break tradition and charge him and investigate him, despite the tradition of not charging people or investigating them during a presidential election. But that's actually happening too. Now, back to Mr. Luft. He supposedly used his position as co-director of the think tank to recruit and pay the aforementioned government official at the behest of the Chinese bosses to publicly support certain policies with respect to China. Now, in the video that he shared with the New York Post, Luft alleged that he had provided potentially incriminating evidence against Biden during a meeting with the FBI and the Department of Justice officials back in 2019, but that his warnings were not heeded, but rather covered up, saying, quote, I, who volunteered to inform the U.S. government about a potential security breach and about compromising information about a man vying to be the next president, am now being hunted by the very same people who I informed. And I may have to live on the run for the rest of my life as a result, said Mr. Luft. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I have no political motive or agenda. I did it out of deep concern that if the Bidens were to come to power, the country would be facing the same traumatic Russian collusion scandal, only this time with China. Sadly, because of the Department of Justice cover-up, this is exactly what happened. Again, this is a breaking story. I'm giving you the update from the Post-Millennial. And it's fascinating to see that's exactly what happens when people speak up. When the truth comes out, they'll figure out a way to slander you and take you down. Just like they come after former NCAA athlete and swimmer Riley Gaines. She comes out on a regular basis with truth bombs, one after the next, just setting the record straight. And they never, ever like what she has to say. One of the things she had to say was last week in an announcement with a new campaign coming out of Florida was about standing up for what's right and standing against what she was calling the normalization of pedophilia. And trust me, they're going to come after her as well, and they have been. Listen to this.
Okay, so I came across this picture yesterday on Twitter, which is very clearly a man who is claiming the identity of a woman and breastfeeding a child. After seeing that picture, I very quickly took to my Twitter to call that what it is, which is sexual abuse of a child. But I didn't realize to what degree until I saw the same man who was breastfeeding the child actively using nipple clamps to fulfill his sexual fetish. And here is the Instagram caption from the same man on his Instagram profile where he wanted to check on how hard you can tug on the nipple clamps. So I guess what I'm wondering is how can any sane human being see this man posing with this child, obviously sucking on his nipple, now seeing what he engages in privately and not see this baby as an erotic prop for this man with a sick fetish? It is sexual abuse of a child, bottom line. And all of this to say that in America, we are normalizing pedophilia. Let me repeat that. We are normalizing pedophilia. And we're normalizing this behavior in the guise of human rights. But sexual abuse is not a human right for anyone. I hate to even be spreading this message, but I think people need to see it. It's up to us to stand up against evil, which is exactly what this is. This is a battle of moral versus evil.
Oh, I think Riley Gaines is 100% right, and we're going to connect with her straight ahead. But this is part of the issue, right? We've got the normalization of pedophilia, and this has been going on since the 50s with guys like, what's that guy's name? Dr. Alfred Kinsey, right? He was one of those crazies that promoted that, as well as disciples of his like Daniel Carlton Gajicek. These guys were speaking at the AMA conference about the importance of what we now call minor attracted people. But back then they thought it was the importance of speaking about intergenerational sex. I mean, just absolute insanity. Now I have a question for you. What portion of sex trafficking victims in the United States are under the age of 18? Now, I'll give you three choices. Is it 10%, 25%, or more than 50%? You let me know on the other side. And when we come back, we're going to connect with Riley Gaines, the NCAA swimmer, and discuss her comments on pedophilia and her new campaign with the First Lady of Florida as well. So don't go anywhere. I am Rich Valdez. You're listening to America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez, our guest, Riley Gaines, former NCAA champion. And before I bring her on, I just wanted to see if you guys got the answer to this, right? The question before the break was, what portion of U.S. Sex trafficking victims are under the age of 18. Was it 10%, 25%, more than 50%? Ding, ding, ding. You are correct. The answer is 79%. While accurate and comprehensive data on sex trafficking is scarce due to the covert nature of these crimes, in 2011, a study of 460 U.S. sex trafficking victims found that 54% of them were under the age of 18. Another study found that a significant portion of victims are 11 to 13 years old, contrary to a lot of what you'd hear in the news. That's exactly the case, and it goes right in line with what we heard right before the break, that clip we heard of Riley Gaines discussing the normalization of pedophilia. And again, this is something we've talked about frequently on this program with, like I said, weirdos like Daniel Carlton Gajasek and his mentor, Dr. Alfred Kinsey, who believed that intergenerational sex and sex amongst children and other family members was a good thing. These are just absolute insane people. Goes way beyond boys in girls sports. But we're going to get to that and the attack on just normalcy as well as women's sports with Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. This is exciting.
Likewise, happy to have you, because I think you're somebody that's been at the forefront of this, because you've swam, and I think a lot of this came to light when we saw Leah Thomas just be heralded as some sort of hero, while others were saying, "Hold on, something doesn't seem right here. This doesn't add up." So let's back before we get into that. I really want to get into we played a clip of your comments with respect to the normalization of pedophilia. And this is a topic that seems very taboo to a lot of people. I don't think it's taboo. I think it's something we need to talk about. I'm a dad of two little girls. They're not little anymore, 18 and 22. But it's always been a topic of concern to me. And it seems to be getting worse and worse. And more people seem to be kind of going with the flow. What say you, Riley Gaines?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. That's entirely what I think is happening, is they're trying to reach this point of normalization of having men in women's locker rooms. Again, in my experience in competing against Leah Thomas, when we expressed our discomfort in that locker room, changing inches away from someone who's exposing male genitalia, when we expressed our discomfort, our universities told us we were the ones who needed counseling. They told us we were the ones who were bigots and should apologize for feeling this way because clearly Leah Thomas was a woman. Well, that's not what we had to see with our own eyes. They want to discredit that innate, inherent feeling to cover yourself when someone with male eyes walks into the place where you're undressing. And it's not just the normalization of locker rooms and what that looks like. The video I think you played, I was responding to a male who was breastfeeding a child.
Oh, excuse me. I believe they've rephrased the term to chest feeding, according to the CDC.
According to the CDC, that seems to be the more gender-inclusive word, along with what they're calling female anatomy now. They're calling it a bonus hole, which as a woman, and these are in peer-reviewed medical published journals, they're calling female anatomy a bonus hole. And it's cervix haver, it's uterus owner, it's menstruator, bleeder, birthing person. They won't say woman. And you have to ask yourself the question of why. And it's because they want to normalize this behavior, normalize these new terms, normalize lying. That's what it is. They want us to deny objective truth.
That's absolutely insane to me. It really is. I mean, I can't imagine that bonus hole. I mean, it just, where do we come up with this stuff? I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is it amazes me that there are people that buy this and go, oh, yeah, absolutely. That is so right. That somebody actually goes along with this. But it seems to be that's the case, right? People really are going along with this. Why do you think they're going along with it? I can't imagine that it's because of anything legitimate, right? It's not because they really believe that, but more so because, I guess, of pressure. What are your thoughts?
Definitely. It's a pressure. And again, speaking from my own experience in competing against Leah Thomas, and changing in a locker room. Look, every single one of us on that pool deck, we knew it was wrong, and we talked amongst ourselves about it. And all of the girls on that pool deck shared the same thoughts and feelings that I'm sharing with you now. Yet I've been one of the lone voices in advocating for this, and it's because they're scared. People don't believe this. You mean to tell me ESPN, an outlet that covers sports, both men and women's sports, really thinks there's no difference between men and women? I mean, they cover the WNBA and they cover the NBA, and you're trying to tell me they don't think there would be any difference in LeBron James getting out there and playing with the women? No, they know it's wrong. They know it's lunacy, yet they're willing to throw their moral compass and what they know to be right and fair out of the window. And it's incredibly disheartening. It should be really chilling for us as a country. And in regards to those pressures, they, again, from my experience, they told us we would never get a job if we spoke out. They told us we would never get into grad school. We would lose our friends. We would be complicit in a potential death if we spoke out. That's what they told us. It's emotional blackmail. They want us to fear the cancel culture and fear the labels, and they do it to deter us from acknowledging and speaking the truth.
Well, Riley Gaines, I mean, it seems to me that if you see a difference between LeBron James and Brittany Griner, then the problem's with you, right? The problem's not with them as athletes, because apparently this is the view that they have, where everything is the same, everything's gender inclusive, until they decide to make their own delineation when they feel like it.
You're entirely right. They want to control how we think, what we say, how we feel. They want to control the narrative. And it's not just in sports. It's in corporate America. It's in the media. It's in academia. I mean, there are so many places where this controlling of thoughts really is plaguing the country, really the world. It's far beyond just America. It's happening in prisons. It's happening in sororities. It's happening all over. It's affecting so many people. And the left loves to push the argument that it's not really happening, but it couldn't be further from the truth.
Now, Riley Gaines, we have about a minute to go, so we'll kind of start this and then finish it on the other side. But you mentioned that you're one of the lone voices, and I think anybody listening to this program, and there's a lot of people listening coast to coast right now, they've probably seen you on television and sharing your story or read about your commentary on this, or even seen you in Congress testifying. But I wonder, why is it that you're the lone voice oftentimes, speaking out against this? Is it because you have a dose of courage that no one else has? Or because people are just really cowing to this movement? A little bit of both? What do you think the bottom line there is?
I think there's a few reasons, one of which people don't feel as if they're credible. They haven't been directly impacted yet. Well, let me tell you, we cannot wait until each and every person is directly impacted before we take a stand. If we wait until then, it's too late in America. We're done as a country. So my encouragement to everyone listening is be bold, be empowered, and know that it's liberating to say the truth.
All right, folks, we're on with Riley Gaines. She's a former NCAA swimmer, and she's very active right now, standing up for women in women's sports. Go figure, what a novel idea. We're going to continue with Riley Gaines coming up right after this. Plus your calls, 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started. Rich Valdez, America at Night.
Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez. Our guest is Riley Gaines. She's a former NCAA swimmer. Yes, she identifies as a woman because she's a woman. She was born a woman. And she's also the host of a new podcast that's going to be coming out real soon. We're going to talk about that momentarily. But Riley Gaines, I want to ask you, because it seems like, all you wanted to do was swim and be an athlete and just be a normal girl, right? A regular woman. But instead, life had a different plan for you because you felt like you had to stick up for what was right. And you have this whole new life, right? Or this new lane in life that's come, post your college sports career. So my question to you is this what you had envisioned for your future? If not, what did you plan for yourself?
This is never something that I could have prepared for. I graduated with my degree in human health sciences and health law and had every intent upon graduation to go to dental school. Actually, what I wanted to pursue was endodontics, which is essentially root canals. And
everybody
clearly,
loves those.
Right?
Yeah.
I kind of justify what I'm doing by I still find myself, how I justify it, I say I'm still getting to the root of the problem in people's mouths. So it's essentially the same thing, just a lot less cool.
Right. Just as painful, though.
Yeah, just as painful. This might be worse.
Yeah, for sure. So what's it like, being this person now that says, like really, literally, like the one of the few voices out there saying, hold on a second, I actually am a woman. I was a girl. I swam as a girl. I'm a woman. And I believe that women are different from men and that men should not be in women's sports. What type of backlash do you get? What type of support do you get? What's that like for you?
Man, it really is tough. There's a lot of struggle that goes with it in regards to the backlash, in regards to just the emotional toll of continually saying the same thing, but it feels like people aren't listening. So it's a lot. But what I found, the backlash I get, really, it's just petty name calling. It's just people resorting to personal attacks because they can't dissuade from my argument, because lucky for me, I have science and logic and reasoning and truth and, frankly, common sense on my side, and they know that. And so they resort to the names such as transphobic, homophobic. I get called racist, white supremacist, domestic terrorist, fascist, all of the things. Again, let me reiterate, simply saying there are two sexes and you can't change your sex. So I get called all of the things, but really what I've realized is that speaks to their insecurities more than it does speak about me, because I know I have no hate in my heart. Even upon literally getting attacked in San Francisco by protesters, assaulted and held
we've seen
for
those
ransom.
videos. Sure.
Yeah, even in those moments, I just wanted to pray for those people who look so hateful, and they do it in the name of love and compassion and kindness and acceptance and tolerance and welcoming and embracing diversity. But they sure as heck didn't embrace my diverse thought.
Right.
But really, I just wanted to pray for them. But the positive feedback, it's 1,000 to 1 in regards to the negative, whether that's private, public. There is so much support out there, and I constantly keep that in mind. I realize what I'm fighting for is so much bigger than just myself. Look, I'm done competing. It's not about me. It's about that next generation. I have a little sister who's an incredible athlete. She's a gymnast. I just got married, and I can only hope one day that I get to have a daughter of my own. Thank you. And that's who I'm fighting for.
Yeah. Let me tell you that fight doesn't end once you become a parent. So I'm glad you started early. Folks, we're on with Riley Gaines, former NCAA swimmer. You've seen her testify before Congress saying crazy things like women are different from men and that men have a larger lung capacity and it's just not fair for them to compete against women. And she's come under heavy fire for that. And you've got a new podcast coming out with Outkick. Tell us about that.
I do, yes. It's called Gains for Girls. The mission of the podcast is to simply spread awareness and ultimately spread the truth surrounding the issue of fairness in women's sports and protecting that, but really the broader attack on women that transcends far beyond sports. And another issue that I'm very passionate about is freedom of speech. So we'll be talking about these with policy experts, with elite athletes, with medical professionals, and really just people who have been affected by the cultural issues that seem to be plaguing America.
Now, Riley Gaines, it seems like, you're a young lady that, went to school, was an athlete, decided to swim. You did your thing. You were good at it. You saw a problem. You spoke out about it. Some natural leadership there. And now you're this national figure that's kind of like a leader and spokesperson for an issue that some people try to cover up and others are trying to champion. And, I can't help but think there's a big future for you somewhere, whether it's just in media or in activism, but maybe in politics, public office, running for Congress. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, it's interesting because I say I like policy, but I don't know about politics. That's I've got to see firsthand. It's a game, right? I mean, on both sides, it's about money, it's about votes, it's about personal advancement. And to be one of the people involved in this, to hopefully make a positive change, that sounds incredible. But you have to wonder, you know, can one person do that to a system that really is, there's a lot of flaws within our political system naturally. I don't know, but I am heavily involved in policy in advancing women's sports bills, advancing a new bill that I worked really closely with legislators on called the Women's Bill of Rights, which we got it passed in Kansas this year and my home state of Tennessee. And I'll be going to Oklahoma August 1st, where Governor Stitt will sign an executive order on the Women's Bill of Rights, which this is a bill, I can't even believe this. It's a bill that defines the word woman.
Wow.
So crazy we need a law to do that. Introduced it at the federal level with Diana Harshberger and Debbie Lesko. So I am very involved in policy and really impact and making changes that would prevent this same thing that happened to me from happening to any young girl or woman, really anyone in general.
And if people want to support the work you're doing, how do they follow you? How do they find you? Is there a website, a social media handle? How do people follow and keep up to speed with what's going on with Riley Gaines?
Absolutely. My Twitter is Riley_Gaines_. I always try and post breaking stories. My most recent tweet now is about a 16-year-old who was kicked out of her local YMCA band and kicked off her swim team for opposing a male undressing in their locker room. And so I try to expose these stories, highlight how certain politicians are responding, whether that's good or bad, all the different work being done, just so people don't believe the narrative that it's not happening or that it's a non-issue.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I mean, literally, my kid just graduated high school like 4 weeks ago, and I can tell you that one day she was telling me about how she had to leave the bathroom because they made the girls' room kind of, I guess, gender inclusive, and some trans students were going in there, and she was like, I don't want to be in the bathroom next to somebody that's not really a girl. And, you know, I was just like, be careful what you say. They might kick you out of school or something. And it's just amazing how, you know, like how you have to coach your kids. And, you know, it's just bizarre to me. So I'm grateful for a voice like yours that has the courage and the guts to stand up to, I guess, you know, the bullies on the left that are trying to push this false narrative that there are no genders and no differences. Again, tell everybody your social media handle and your website if you have one.
Absolutely. Social media handle is Riley_Gaines_. My website is RileyGaines.com. I also am working with the Independent Women's Forum, and they do phenomenal work, and their website is www.iwf.org.
Outstanding. Well, keep up the good work. I hope that you'll join us again as there's more updates on the work you're doing and as more of these women's bills of rights and executive orders get signed into office. You have an important voice, and I think it's critical that you stay the course, because there's just not enough women, if I can dare use that word. There's not enough of them out there fighting on your behalf. And I'm grateful for the work you do. Thank you, Riley Gaines.
Well, thank you so much.
You bet. All right, folks, there is more to come straight ahead with your calls and more, plus some crazy clips of audio we've got. A lot of crazy things going on in the world today. We're going to get to that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. Valdez with an S.
God is trans!
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 So that is a chant. God is trans. God is trans. And they go on and on about that. That happened over the weekend at a pride march in the United Kingdom held on the streets of London where they were chanting God is trans. That's according to Sky News host Rita Panahi. And it just is fascinating to me that, you know, there are people that are like, hey, look, I don't care what you do as long as, you know. But when is it that people just wake up, right, and just realize that this is way more than the way they want to live their lives? When somebody wants to take to the streets and yell God is trans, and again, I support your right to do that. You want to yell God is trans, be my guest and yell God is trans. But just don't be surprised when I take to the airwaves, and there are millions of listeners on hundreds of stations, and give you a piece of my mind and start taking calls from people on this exact issue, because this to me is out of control. I don't walk around, bringing up God in their transness, right? My argument here is typically one of mental health. That's just the bottom line. It's not a situation where we, I want to fault them as sinners or this and that. And some may want to go that route. That's not necessarily my angle here. My angle is, I think if we know that gender dysphoria is a mental issue and it's identified as, you know, something that they diagnose as mental illness in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, number 4, and I think number 5, then the DSM-4, DSM-5 say that this is an issue. Then why do we have a minority of doctors that say, no, the answer to this is for you to become the other sex. Once you become the other gender, then you'll be better. And they ridicule and criticize those that say, no, let's try and help you be your gender. Right? And again, I've never figured this out. Maybe we can find a doctor that'll help us understand that. I can't for the life of me think, why, if you have a little boy, let's just say, that says, oh my gosh, I feel like a woman, or I feel like I'm trapped in the wrong body, why they don't, instead of giving this little boy estrogen and breast implants and helping him to become a woman, why don't we help him to become more of a boy? Like, why not give him extra testosterone and reinforce what he already has, right? What they say, the gender that they were born with, assigned at conception, if you will. So I don't know. I just don't know the answer to this, but it's fascinating to me that you have all these people with this hashtag trans pride event in the UK and other places, chanting that God is trans. I think this is just a crazy situation. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why this is the case. But let's hit the phones, check in with Kim, Shields, Michigan, listening on KDKA Online. Kim, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Hi, Rich. Thank you. I wanted to tell you about an incident that happened that's very similar to this, that happened about 10 years ago in Midland, Michigan, which is about 20 miles from here. And the big kerfuffle happened at Planet Fitness. This man that was well over 6 foot tall, but claimed to be a woman because he wore colored lip gloss, wanted to use the women's changing room. And middle-aged women at the time, like 55, one of them said, I don't feel comfortable. He's a man, except he's got lip gloss on. And he's changing. Yeah. And Planet Fitness in Midland canceled her membership, the 55-year-old woman, because they said she was not. Yeah. And then she I think she went to our state senator at the time, Gary Glenn, in the Midland area. He looked into this huge guy that was pretending to be a woman, and here he was a bisexual prostitute. He had like one name, like Cher or something. He advertised
Madonna.
online.
Right.
Yeah, he would have sex with men or women. That's what he's advertising himself as. And he looked into this guy, and he said, you canceled this regular woman's membership, and he's still using the women's changing room. And I don't know whatever happened. I know it went to court, and I'll have to look into it. But this guy's a doozy. People I know have seen him at the local mall, and I've seen him at the Myers store. To give you an idea how he walks there, he's well over 6 foot. He was wearing like pantyhose and a bathing suit bottom, kind of like a brief, and just really bizarre. And you just look at him, and that I said, that's the one. And the people that I know that saw him traipsing around the mall all the time, they said he smells like he's got a bottle of perfume on. And I said, well, he's looking for business. He's a bisexual prostitute. That's what he advertised. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Crazy stuff, Kim. And let me ask you, did you ever observe or hear anybody in the area with this person or anybody else chanting that God is trans?
No.
It seems like you lucked out then.
Yeah, God is trans. Oh, my. And you know what I mean? And then I heard this business about on the nuts on the other side are saying that Jesus had two fathers, he had Joseph.
And they're just trying to make it out to fit their narrative. And it's interesting. They like to prostitute the truth in order to get the result that they want. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate it. We're going to take a quick pause right here, come back to your calls and more. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
...2023 is Ricky!
All right, so that is, I think that's Dutch, folks. That's Miss Netherlands, who is now qualified for a shot at Miss Universe. The problem here is that when you hear knock, 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 Ricky, that's not a shout out to me. That's a shout out to this Ricky Valerie Coley, 22 years old, who had her hands over her mouth. She was in shock as she was named the winner on Sunday night as the soundtrack for Unstoppable played. And she won, right? She won this. The only thing was, this is not a woman, right? She's a transgender woman, meaning a biological male. And she has won this pageant. And now, for the first time, she now has a shot at becoming Miss Universe. She's going to compete in the Miss Universe competition. And it's fascinating to me that this is where we are right now as a nation, or as a globe, as a country, as a planet, as a world. Unbelievable. We have men now competing in women's pageants. I don't know. Call me old, but this is out of control, in my opinion. Anyway, straight ahead, we're going to talk about the crazy that's going on and why people don't even know what's going on with Joe Biden, his son Hunter, and the rest of the family. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you Monday night. It's our late night national town hall conversation. Feel free to give us a call. Join the conversation, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And it's interesting how you look at some of these headlines, right? Listen to just some of the headlines here. Obama-era emails reveal Hunter's ties to nearly a dozen senior-level administration aides. So that's good old Hunter Biden involved in malfeasance. Then you've got President Biden himself wobbling through the meeting with King Charles. And I remember seeing a video of that earlier today where Biden was marching, or wobbling or striding or shuffling, 2.5 feet ahead of King Charles as they're like walking and talking. And President Trump was widely criticized for walking ahead of the Queen when he met with the British head of state. And it's interesting how Biden now, is walking ahead of the king and nobody says a word. Oh, that's why I'm here, right? I'm here to say lots of words because it's interesting that there's this evidence that continues to mount that the Democrats are losing faith in Joe Biden, and yet we don't hear anything. We've got the Department of Justice now indicting the whistleblower who alleged that Biden received payments from a Chinese Communist Party affiliated individual. And now they're locking this guy up so that he can't testify and say what he's got to say. We've got a clip from Mr. Luft. Listen to this.
My ordeal goes back to a fatal decision I made in March of 2019 to share with the U.S. government my knowledge about the Biden family's relations with CFC. As I said, it was in March of 2019 in a 2-day session at the U.S. Embassy in Brussels. I insisted that the meeting take place in March because at the time there were rumors that Joe Biden was planning to run for president. I saw it as my civic duty to alert the government beforehand and give it enough time to probe the issue. I want to be clear. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I have no political motive or agenda. I did it out of deep concern that if the Bidens were to come to power, the country would be facing the same traumatic Russia collusion scandal, only this time with China. Sadly, because of the DOJ's cover-up, this is exactly what happened.
Now, that's Dr. Gal Luft. He's Israeli-American. He's co-director of a think tank out of Maryland. And he's been known as the missing witness, quote unquote, in the investigation into Joe Biden's corruption. The New York Post recently shared that video that you just heard the audio of, where he broke down the various allegations he's making against Biden. And he claims that he was arrested to prevent him from testifying in front of the House Oversight Committee and getting this stuff on the record because the evidence is so damning. Now, what do we call that? What do we call it? We call it election interference. The Media Research Center, great organization, Curtis Houck, Brent Moselle, many others, a poll that they just put out finds that most CNN and MSNBC viewers don't even know about Biden's corruption or scandals and all of this negative news that's coming out of the administration because, well, 50% of MSNBC and CNN's viewers aren't even aware of what's going on. They're not even hearing about this stuff. So to get to the bottom of that, I want to connect with Curtis Houck from the MRC to help us understand what's going on. Curtis, welcome.
Hey, good evening, Rich. Good to be with you.
My pleasure. So let's break this down because, thank God you guys are doing this type of work where we're quantifying how many people are and aren't paying attention. It's always a question, I think, that runs through our minds. But let's take this step by step here, because clearly they're tacitly complicit in interfering in the election by not giving you the facts, right? I could do an opinion show, but even when I give you my opinion, I play a clip of what the Democrats are saying and what, you know, the other side feels before I give my opinion. And it seems sadly like that's not the case with MSNBC or even CNN.
Yeah, I mean, in NewsBusters, we provide the transcripts. It's a lot of work on our end to clean up the muffled closed captioning of live programming. But we do that for our readers because even if you disagree with our analysis, just like if people may disagree with your take, but if you play the soundbite, we have the transcript, you can form your own opinion. And we kind of view this poll, at least I do, as a follow-up to our poll after the 2020 election, which a lot of listeners may recall, where we found that 82% of Biden voters were unaware of either a Trump success or a Biden scandal. And if they had known about either one of them, 17% of swing state Biden voters would have left Joe Biden. So we kind of, this poll, we come to it, and we know that CNN and MSNBC folks are kind of, they're in their silos. They lecture us about being in information silos, but, you know, you look at the things we polled and we found that, yeah, actually, no, you're the ones that are in information silos compared to those that watch Fox News and Newsmax. You mentioned 50% didn't know about the whistleblower alleging preferential treatment. Another one that we found was the House Oversight Committee and others have found that about $10 million has gone from foreign nationals to bank accounts of the Biden family. Only 41% of CNN MSNBC viewers knew that, compared to 64% on conservative cable news.
Wow.
Yeah, and
so you're talking like Newsmax, Fox, and others?
Yeah, we're talking about that. And, you know, only 35% of CNN MSNBC viewers knew that there have been no sanctions for Russian oligarchs with ties to Hunter Biden. And that's 53 versus 53% for Fox and Newsmax. So whether it's just the general baseline about the FBI whistleblower or kind of some of the more minor tangential points, such as sanctions to Russian oligarchs, the disparity is huge. It's anywhere between 16 and 26% when it comes to Biden family scandals. And we can talk about some of the other issues too, but because we looked at all kinds of other issues as well. Where you
before we get into those, I want to remind everybody who you are and how they could find you. Then we'll take a pause and we'll come back and we'll look at the other issues, because I think this is great work that you're doing. Folks, we're on with Curtis Houck. He's with the Media Research Center, and we're looking at a poll that they just put out where it found, you know, there was 50% of MSNBC and CNN viewers that weren't aware of some of the key issues involving the Bidens. And it gets worse. There's a lot more that they've taken a look at depending on the issue gap. You've got two groups that average 23.5% on what the actual factual information was between the viewers of these various cable networks. So we're going to get into that and everything else that they measured in this poll with Curtis Houck from the Media Research Center, MRC.org. Don't go anywhere. I am Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The Ukrainians are running out of ammunition. The ammunition that they call them 155 millimeter weapons. This is a war relating to munitions, and they're running out of that ammunition, and we're low on it. And so what I finally did, took the recommendation of the Defense Department to not permanently, but to allow for, in this transition period where we have more 155 weapons, these shells for the Ukrainians, to provide them with something that has a very low dud rate. It's about I think it's 150, which is the least likely to be blowing. And it's not used in civilian areas. They're trying to get through those trenches and then stop those tanks from rolling.
Is it me or is Joe El Baboso Biden one of the most boring speakers ever? It's hard to get through like 30 seconds of a clip. But anyway, that was Joe Biden talking about why and the importance around arming Ukraine with these cluster bombs. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But we're on the topic of Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, the Biden family, and everything else that seems to be happening in the media that isn't being spoken about. And our guest is Curtis Houck, NewsBusters managing editor. They're a part of MRC, and they do fantastic work. They've got a poll out that is talking about how 50%, fewer than 50% of MSNBC and CNN viewers are aware of the key issues with the Bidens. And there's other issues that they measured here that aren't getting any traction with the public. Curtis Houck, welcome back.
Good to be with you as always again.
And let's talk about some of the other things that you guys analyzed and measured in this poll, because I think it's important that people know that, so many of our fellow Americans are just being kept in the dark.
Yeah, they would much rather talk about Donald Trump and, or assuming, being spoon-fed by rich white liberal wine mom story hour host Nicole Wallace that we're domestic terrorists or something like that, that like your conservative, brother or sister or aunt or neighbor, is like a ticking time bomb that like you say one wrong thing to us and we're the next mass shooter or something. But no, these people are, these people are they're complete information silos, and it's borderline deranged and sociopathic. But of our poll, the top number that I was just struck by the most was border crossings. We've seen record numbers of border crossings under this president. Only 38% of CNN and MSNBC viewers knew that. That was astounding to me, versus 77% of conservative media. That is a 39% difference. I mean, or the fact that, I'll just add another one about the border. There only 34% of them knew that there have been suspected terrorists caught at the border as well. And then and one other one from our other
people
party
that are on the FBI's watch list.
Exactly. That's what it falls into as well. And then on the economy, only 38% knew that American households have lost $7,100 in purchasing power under Joe Biden, versus 61% in conservative media.
See, that one amazes me, really, Curtis. You know why? Because I feel like not only should you know that, just do something, right? Go buy something. Go buy a burger. Go buy a car. Go buy anything. And you're going to see what kind of purchasing power you've lost, because it's so evident. But yet they don't acknowledge that.
Right. Well, and I mean, we're dealing with a news media, Rich, that, you look at, so when we were dealing with the Jordan Neely situation, when that story first came out, you had Sonny Hostin say, well, if I rode the subway, I would be giving people like him money and food and all these other sorts of things, and I would be compassionate and all these things.
But she doesn't
and you
ride
notice
the
the first
subway.
part. You notice that part. It's the same thing about going to the grocery store, I mean, when was the last time, Gayle King or Joy Behar or, George Stephanopoulos actually did their own grocery shopping?
Right. When have you ever seen them in a bodega? Right.
Yeah. When is the last time they filled up their own gas? There was a story last week on CBS about, video game developers designing displays for cars. And Gail was like, well, I was driven around in a car this weekend that had one of those. And you're like, oh, wait a second. No, you weren't driving. You were being driven around. So there's this complete detachment from reality. So, of course, when it comes to issues like the economy and immigration, things that affect all Americans or should affect all Americans, they're completely isolated from it. And those people that are perhaps most rabid on this, when it comes to CNN and MSNBC, they live in New York City, they live in Washington, where they are so wealthy and that they are so detached from reality that none of those increased costs really affect their bottom line.
Unbelievable. I'm looking at here at the economic portion of it. You've got gas prices going up by 52%, and 56% recalled hearing about that. Meanwhile, during the Biden administration, but that number dropped to less than half, or 48%, among those who say they watch CNN and MSNBC. So it's fascinating how, I guess, you're suckered into thinking life is grand and gas is cheap when you watch CNN and MSNBC. I don't know how you do it, because you still have to pay for gas at the pump, Curtis.
Right. And yeah, it's like, you don't realize that, yeah, your gas bill, even if someone's filling it up for you, or if work is paying for your gas, you're paying to fill up your gas tank, don't you get a receipt for this kind of stuff to fill out expense reports? And don't you notice this? The final number on that section there, when it comes to the economy, was only 34% of CNN and MSNBC viewers knew that real wages and salaries have fallen under Joe Biden. That salaries and wages have, either been flat or plummeted. I mean, that's just, I don't even know what to say about that. That is, it's just astounding. And again, it goes to the point that, in where I am outside of Washington, D.C., frequently 6 or 7 of the 10 most richest counties in the country are in and around Washington. So the people in our news media setting the news agenda, people, with the levers of power in Congress and those on K Street, the decline in wages does not affect these folks at all, because you'll see that, they didn't experience a COVID decline in values or unemployment. Same with 2008. It didn't affect these people at all, because it's all dependent upon the government.
Unbelievable. Folks, again, we're on with Curtis Houck. He's the managing editor at newsbusters.org. They're with MRC. And we're discussing just the absolute craziness that is going on in our media today. And I love to see it quantified, because I talk about this stuff just from anecdotal positions, saying, I don't see this here, I don't see this there. But it's great to see when there's numbers attached to it. But it's also eye-opening. It's pretty sad to see that there's so many Americans that don't know what's going on. But I guess if we want to look at the glasses half full, we can say that, those that are watching Newsmax TV and Fox News, most of them, nearly 3 and 4, 73%, recalled hearing at least about the economic news. And I guess that's a good thing. Now, Curtis, let everybody know, if they want to take a look at this poll, where do they go? How do they follow the work that you guys are doing?
Yeah, we're at newsbusters.org, and we're at Newsbusters on Twitter. We're at the Media Research Center on, I believe, Instagram. We have all kinds of stories talking about the Biden scandals, the war in Ukraine. We have a big study about KJP. How many questions does she actually answer? We've quantified that as well. Spoiler, only 2% about Biden scandals. So we have all kinds of stories over at Newsbusters. We even my story today was about Fang Fang. So that Fang Fang Bang Bang was my headline. So you pick the issue. We'll have it broken down about how the media is covering it or not covering it.
You guys do excellent work. I want to encourage everybody to check out mrc.org, newsbusters.org, and all the other divisions they have. They have a Latino division where they're covering stuff in Spanish. It's excellent work that they do. Curtis Houck, thank you for being here, sir.
Thanks, Rich.
You bet. Folks, more to come straight ahead. We're going to continue our conversation. We're going to get into a little bit of what's going on with living your life healthy, and we're going to talk with a veteran from the military who's going to bring us up to speed. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. Don't get fresh. That's what I used to tell the liberal callers when they get crazy on the phone. Anyway, give us a call if you want to join the conversation. And if you want to get fresh, I guess you can. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. And, of course, I'm at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. That is Valdez with an S if you want to chime in that way. Just to clue you in, I check Twitter a couple of times a day because, that's where the news happens and whatnot. But I really enjoy Instagram. Call me whatever you want to call me, but I enjoy it because you get video, you get a quick hot take, you get the stories. There's so many different aspects to it. It's a really versatile social media app. Truth Social, also a very good social media app. And there's a new one called Threads that I've signed up for, just that nobody takes my name. But I don't think I'm going to use a third or fourth or fifth or whatever it is social media. At Rich Valdez with an S, by the way. I don't think I'm going to do that. But I was scrolling through social media earlier today, and I saw some clips of Dana White, the UFC president, and of UFC, of course, being the mixed martial arts league called the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And he was shaking hands with former President Trump, who I like to call Donaldus Magnus El Trumpito, the 45th president of these United States. And Trump was just getting such a warm reception in these videos I saw. And it was because there was a big fight over the weekend. And the media, of course, they tried to get Dana White out of sorts and try to pit things like they usually do and frame them a certain way when they try to, they try to frame things a certain way to make it fit their narrative, right? But Dana White blasted a reporter for racism. I mean, basically, they were trying to make it look like something was racist going on, and he turned it on them, saying that the fight between Israel Adesanya and Dricus Duplessis, this was, on the reporter for making that up, and he just wasn't having it. Listen to this.
I know you say, hey, this is the fight business. People say nasty things, right? But the tension between those two and kind of the racial undertones and all those things, how do you...
What were the racial undertones?
Dricus says he's the real African fighter, and so, Israel dropped some N-words in there tonight.
So what was the racial... Who did? Who dropped the racial...
Israel was saying over and over, yeah.
He's black.
50 N-bombs in there.
Okay, he's black. Who gives...
I was going to say, so you don't have any concern about the way the build-up, the tension between those two?
I could care less. This is the fight business. Israel Adesanya can say whatever he wants to say. Who gives a Why are people about that?
Some people.
Of course they are. Oh, hey. All right, got it. Yeah. Too bad.
This is why people love guys like this, right? You got to keep it gangsta. You got to keep it real. So anyway, Adesanya is a black fighter from Nigeria. He was taunting Duplessis, a white South African challenger. Again, this is according to a piece in the New York Post. After the second round TKO, and saying some very very things, like saying, let's go my N-word, what's up B-word, let's go N-word, mocking Adesanya, yeah, my African brother. I'm African, but I'm no brother of yours, Duplessis retorted to him. So there was a back and forth. And what I love about the back and forth with Dana White and the reporter is the reporter was like, well, look, there's a lot of racial undertones here. And Dana White quite aptly pointed out, this was not racial undertones in any way. This was nothing more than the hype that people discuss in, with any sporting event, and that the black fighter was using the N-word, which many black Americans and black other people, right, from other parts of the world frequently use in their vernacular. And I mean, to be very frank, right, really, my dad's nickname was Negro because he was the darkest of his 12 siblings. And this had nothing to do with race or colorism or anything else. He just happened to be the darker, complexioned sibling. And so he was known as El Negro to his 12 brothers and sisters. And it just, a reporter like that would come and be like, so what were the racial undertones like with your dad and his 12 brothers and sisters? What was that like? And, and I would have to probably take a similar position and laugh at this guy if they did something like that. Lamentably, that's just not how it is in real life. People, just because you have a black guy fighting a white guy or two guys that are from the continent of Africa that are going at it, and it was more probably a rivalry about that than anything else, where they try to make it to seem like it's about something else, but it's not. It point blank is not the case, and I just think it's so interesting that we're in a time in history where this is the goal of those that are in media. This is the goal of, people feel like they're going to sell more of whatever, more clicks, more clickbait, more clicks on your headline, more views on your video if you have a more provocative headline. And I'm sure that's true. But ultimately, I think, there's guys like Dana White that say, you know what, while you guys sit there and hype up the fight as black versus white, the new civil rights war, it's really about a fight. Right. And of course, if you want to add a little rivalry to it, just, for the sake of promo, you can do that. But ultimately, it's about the substance of it. Right. It really is. It's like when I make a big deal about Kamala Harris and I call it Que mala eres. Right. Yeah, of course, I'm using a little satire, a little ridicule there. But ultimately, it's not just about making fun of her, calling him Joe El Baboso Biden. Those are minuscule things. It's really about how badly they do their job in comparison to what we would expect, right? So I think that's what makes it funny, and you get to laugh at it, but still look at the real meat and potatoes, the actual issue that we're facing. And here, the issue we're facing was the athleticism of one competitor versus the other, irrespective of whether one is white versus the other who might be black. That's just stupid. It really is. I mean, and I get it. Look, I get it. I've been to fights where there's a Puerto Rican boxer, and, and that's a part of it. People go because, they're like, oh, look, that's the guy that reps, our ancestral homeland, our roots. Okay, great. But it's not about the Puerto Rican guy versus the Mexican guy or any other guy. It's just they're repping where they come from or their ancestral roots. And it's really about one's superior athleticism versus the other. And it's just, again, it's sad how the media tries to take that to a different level. So we'll continue as we come back. I'm going to give you the phone number again, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Your calls and more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. 833-4-VALDEZ is the number. Let's go to Josh. He's in Grass Valley, California, KNCO. Josh, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hey, what's up? I hope you're doing great.
Wonderful. Thank God.
It's about the whole LGBTQ thing. It's just driving me nuts. In other words, I mean, basically, I've studied history, and homosexuality has existed for thousands and thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And so, you can want whatever you want, but we talk about it so much, I feel like we're promoting it, In other words, it's like, I just wish we would focus in on what's important and focus in on what matters. And if people, and I've thought about this before, because any good Christian has thought about this before, like, what is the purpose of homosexuality, or why is it on such a upswing? And, I don't know, maybe there's too many humans on Earth. A man and a man can't make a baby together. I don't judge. I try to come from like a Jesus background. But what I notice is what we talk about constantly, we promote. So like, I'm just like kind of wondering why is it that we're all who people who maybe aren't into it and don't want to promote it are like, I feel like talking about it, like promoting it basically, instead of promoting what should we be promoting instead of focusing in on what's bad, what is there that's good that we should be focusing in on instead?
Well, how would you answer that? What's good that you would like to focus on?
Well, permaculture, I mean, like
tell us about
natural. Well, it's a theory that was created by Bill Mollison and another man not that long ago. I think he may have passed. And it's just a way of, that we should be managing the environment so that we can all live together with plants and animals and have food and not have to like be slaves to some, artificial intelligence that's destined to come, which is obvious that's what we're heading towards. But why not just slow it down and just have a more mellow, gentle lifestyle, loving each other, Jesus-based, Christian-based, heart-based? Why not? Why all of this push towards artificial intelligence, trying to go to Mars, transhumanism? Why? Why not? Let's slow down and make peace on Earth.
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of reasons for that stuff. I think number one, it part of what you're saying is kind of like saying, why did Eve take the bite from the fruit of the tree of knowledge and good and evil, right? Why did she do it? Why do we have murder? Why do we have child molesters? Why do we have people that steal? All right, why is there evil that exists in the world? Because there is, right? There is evil in the world, and it is a thing. And, I mean, we could be an ostrich and bury our heads in the sand and say, well, while there's a ton of evil in the world, we're not going to talk about any of it, and we're going to talk about all the wonderful things like the panda bear at the San Diego Zoo that just had whatever, its fifth baby. And we could do that. I mean, I just don't know how much of that people want to know and how much of that they feel is super important to their daily lives. It's nice to have a feel-good story every now and again, but I think people want to know what they're missing out on. And many times it's those interesting clips like the one we played earlier where people are taking to the streets in London and shouting, God is trans. I wasn't shouting God is trans. They were. So, as much as I don't want to promote that, I think it's important as a commentator. I have to give commentary on things that happen. To me, that's a newsworthy item where we've got to say, hey, let's talk about this God is trans stuff. Or when you have somebody that's wearing one of those one-piece bathing suits from Target that have the extra cutout for the male genitalia, and they're, purporting to be a female or identifying as a female, and they want to swim against Riley Gaines. Well, again, I think Riley Gaines is going to talk about the guy that's saying he's a girl that wants to swim against her, as opposed to, what you talked about with sustainable farming and this Jesus culture, which I think is fantastic. So I think that part of the answer is it's just, people want to have an entertaining and informative conversation and headline, and some of those topics do fit that mold, and I think others don't. And that's probably the best way that I could square it. But interesting, good point, and I appreciate the call, Josh, from Grass Valley, California, KNCO. Big shout-out to everybody in California. California love. Anyway, we're coming right back. We're going to continue with your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. We're going to continue with your calls and more. Let us see. Where do we go from here? We go to Michael in Cornwall, Canada, WEZF. Michael, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hi, thanks for putting me on the air so fast.
We love the Canadians. Go right ahead.
So in regards to, first of all, if you look in nature, how can I say this politely? Male monkeys don't F other male monkeys.
Why not?
In nature. Well,
why aren't the male monkeys effing one another?
Because
it's unnatural.
It's not a natural thing to do. Okay,
right, and you can't make more monkeys that way.
Well, I didn't think about that, Rich. Thanks for pointing that out to me.
There'd be no more monkeys, right? If that were the case.
Well, we all descend from monkeys, right? So anyway. So the other thing, too, is in regards to your reason why the whole trans thing, somebody pointed this out to me recently, and it's simple as this. It costs a lot, and I'm talking like close to $1 million or something like that to get a sex change. So why is this happening right now? Big Pharma is making money off of all of these trans
hormones,
right?
Puberty blockers, sure.
Everything. So that's the answer to your question. So
yeah, listen, I agree with you. I think anytime somebody can exploit something, they will. And there's always two sides of it, right? You get the people that are righteous and they're righteously indignant about something like, yeah, how dare you come against these people that are just trying to live their truth and be who they were really, trapped in this wrong body and they're just trying to be authentic. And you have these people that really believe that. And then you have a bunch of other guys, like you said, that are, I think, wringing their hands and counting the money as they're like, yeah, put them on puberty blockers. Yeah, do this, do that. Let's start younger and younger. Let's see if we can get the teachers union involved and get the little kids and continue this gravy train where ultimately people are going to make money off of a situation. And there's an old saying that anything worth doing is worth doing for money. And I always believe that, there's a political saying. And it's this. It's about the money. And when it's not about the money, it's about the money. And I've always seen that to be true. And maybe that's just a Jersey thing, but I can tell you that here in New York, New Jersey, East Coast, that's always been the case. It's rarely ever about ideology. It's always about the money. And when it's not about the money, it's about the money, Michael.
Yeah. And as far as ideology, the other thing, too, is some politicians are fair and honest, whatever, but the bottom line is it's all about votes, right?
Right. And again, that game, too. It's about the money. And if it's not about the money, it's about the money. Because you don't get votes unless you have money. You don't win unless you have money. You can't have a campaign unless you have money. Ultimately, that's where it all boils down to. Thank you, Michael, listening on WEZF in Cornwall, Canada. Never been to Cornwall, Canada, but I'm sure it's lovely this time of year. Thanks, Michael. We appreciate it. Now, we're going to get to the rest of your calls momentarily on the other side because we're about to take a pause. But I want to just tease some of the stuff we're talking about. We talked about Biden's foreign policy. We talked about America being divided and how we might be able to unite America. We're also going to talk about dating, right? Dating is something I do every now and again. And there's an interesting clip I want you to hear. I was on social media, and the craziest thing, this woman was saying how traditional dating is all wrong. You got to do it the way she says it. So we're going to play that clip, and I'd love your feedback. Give me a call, 833-482-5337. It's Open Phone America, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be with you this Monday evening. And our telephone number, if you want to join our late-night national town hall conversation, pull up a chair. It's like a big round table where we discuss everything that happened during the day, and we do it live at night with all of you. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Now, let's talk about a couple of things, right? Let's first go over some of the headlines here, because there was a lot of news today with Biden and with you name it. It was a busy news day. One of the busy stories I want to jump into was a woman who was caught on video berating a Hispanic family at a pool in Colorado. And now she's saying, look, listen. Even though you heard me say all these things and it was, expletive-laden tirade, it was, and racially charged at that. This wasn't racist, per se. Again, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Listen, I'm a kid that, a man now, that grew up in Brooklyn where using race for description was incredibly common. I mean, in my generation, we just started to not do that as much. It's more like you'd go, Jack wearing the yellow shirt, but the generation just before me, literally my brothers and everybody in that age, it's like 50 years old now. They literally was like, Tommy? Yeah, black Tommy, Jewish Tommy, Greek Tommy. Which Tommy are you talking about? Like everything was based on race. Where'd you go? I was on Flatbush Avenue. On the Haitian side? Like everything was, that's just how the neighborhood was. That's how people were. Everybody did it. Not just one race, every race. Everybody's, oh, you're going to the Spanish neighborhood? Oh, you're with the Puerto Ricans. Oh, you're over there. Yeah, that's how it was. If you went to Brighton Beach, oh, it's the Russians, which are now Ukrainians. But that was the gist. And nobody, not a single, group, in large part, I'm sure there might have been some naysayers within those groups, but nobody took offense to any of that type of comment, because it wasn't offensive, in my opinion, and it wasn't meant to be offensive. It was just really racial descriptors, because so many neighborhoods were race-based, if you will. And there were many mixed neighborhoods too, but there were areas that were predominantly one race versus another race, and that's how you knew what part of town you were in. And I think things were fine, other than the Crown Heights riots. And again, that was not necessarily race. That was just, it ended up becoming a big racial riot because of the person hit a child with their car, and that became a thing, and then it broke out into the Jews and I think it was the Haitians going at it just outside of Flatbush. And again, that was the Crown Heights riots back in the 90s. But it wasn't really about race. It was about, the death of a child. And it just happened to be that one neighborhood versus the other neighborhood, and everybody had each other's back, and they all happened to be, either Jewish or Haitian, and that's how that worked out. But my point in all of that is that's what it was like for me as a kid growing up in New York. But, when you hear about these videos, or you listen to the audio of a woman who launches into this racially charged rant against a Hispanic family because of their race or because of their background, then it's something else. And again, maybe that wasn't the case, but it definitely seems that way given the amount of bleeps that we had to do. And this isn't like one of those funny late shows where we unnecessarily bleep things, right? Like if you say your middle name, let's say your middle name's Jack, and they go, hi, my name is Rich Bleep Valdez. It's like, I didn't curse, it just said Jack. But that whole unnecessary censorship stuff, this isn't that. This is actual censorship. Listen to this.
You have a thought? 2 people. You have a Mexican party in the pool. Trash. Oh yeah, you can't do that. You can't just record me. No.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, you guys are such losers. I'm so sorry. Go back down to Denver. Please, I don't. I live here.
All right. So that is Blair Featherman. She's 49 years old, and she told the Daily Mail that she's not racist and that the clip that was posted on TikTok and has now become viral of her in her bikini saying they're having a Mexican party and, going ahead and cursing them out, calling them trash was, and low class, was not racial. And I guess, maybe she was from Brooklyn. That's actually an insult to all of my fellow Brooklynites. No. I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt, but it seems like she was not a fan of the Mexicans. And again, if you don't like something somebody does, call out what they did. Don't call them out for their race. How would she like it if they turned around and said, "Oh, it's because you're a stupid white lady"? She's not doing that because she's white. She's doing it because she's stupid, right? And that's the key word, emphasis on stupid. But anyway, Featherman was filmed calling the family trash and low class for having a pool party on the 4th of July. And, saying that there are things that she needed to say, but the video doesn't show all of it and it's taken out of context. Again, I think if you start calling people saying you're having a Mexican party, just imagine if they turned around and said, "Listen, lady, you're having a white party." I think that'd be racist, right? Who does that stuff? So anyway, that's that, and I think it's crazy. It's crazy that that's where we are as society. People just so hyper focused on race. Anyway, let us go to the calls straight ahead. I actually want to go to them now, but we have, well, let's do it now. We've got Frank in Akron, Ohio. He's on WINR, great station, by the way. Frank, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Thanks, Rich. You're a class act. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it, brother. Love you too. What's going on?
Yeah. I'm a Jew by adoption. I'm a Christian believer, born again.
Amen.
And I try and watch what comes out of my mouth. And my scripture says, "Come ye apart and be ye separate." These reprobates, the LGBTI, whatever, I don't care. I look past the color. By their fruits you will know them. And they're fighting hard to be accepted, and they're weaving themselves into our society. Whether they're programmers or whether they're unemployed or whether they're on welfare or whether they're living at home with mom and dad or in a commune or whatever, they're weaving themselves into our society and they're dividing us.
Yeah.
And the old deal, clothing, divide and conquer, division.
Yeah. Right, yeah. That's Richard Cloward and Francis Fox Pivens, communist professors that are married. They're all about overwhelming the system and ultimately dividing and conquering, which is a very communist idea. And you're right. That's sadly, that is a mantra that we're seeing with those that don't like religion, don't like Jesus, don't like America in many ways. This is what they want to do, is divide and conquer. They're against what they like to call, quote unquote, organized religion. But I guess they're for disorganized religion. I had somebody ask me the other day, are you very religious? And I thought, I don't know, can you be very pregnant? It's amazing the way people portray things, because once we're in a place now today where 10 years ago it was like, oh, well, I'm of the Christian faith. That, oh, okay, great, good for you. Now today you say I'm of the Christian faith, and they're like, oh, you're a bigot. Oh, I see. oh, you're one of those crazy radicals that believes in things that aren't real. It's just amazing the number that has been done on Christianity over the years. In particular, I'd say the last 5 years, where we've now it's almost like it's a position of virtue to say that you're some sort of atheist or agnostic. People view people that will reject God as somehow holier than thou, or more righteous than those that acknowledge God. And it just fascinates me. The other thing they do is the age-old, oh my gosh, there's so many hypocrites in church, whereas, of course, there's hypocrites in church. There's hypocrites that call this program. There's hypocrites in your bodega. There's hypocrites wherever you go. Why wouldn't you find any in church? People think that just because you're in a church means that you're in a utopia. No, of course not. I think church is accurately described as a hospital for sinners, not a hotel for saints. And I think you bring up a great point, Frank, that we have a problem uniting America, and it's because we've embraced all of the divisiveness.
Yeah. My understanding is that woman lives in Upper New York, that old bat. That,
doesn't surprise me. If they told me she was from Brooklyn, I'd have to, do a face palm off the air here. But she was dead wrong. You just don't do that. I don't think you do that. It's not the way to, if you didn't like what somebody was doing, you don't say, oh, you're already having a Mexican party. That's the dumbest thing ever. Just imagine if it's an African-American flag. What are you going? It's having a black party? You'd be roasted for that, and rightfully so. You shouldn't talk to people that way, no matter where they're from. Frank, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Great talking to you. Thanks for your kind words. Big shout out to WINR and everybody in Ohio. And we're coming right back with your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to it.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez, that's me, actually, at Rich Valdez with an S on all of the social media. And speaking of social media, I'm just looking at the comments on the break, and I see one from at Cape May Rocky. He goes by Deplorable Rocky number 3 on Twitter. He says, Rich is a great interviewer and has a great podcast. Thank you, Deplorable Rocky. Big shout out to you. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you and your kind words. And everybody else that's commenting online and calling the program, I appreciate it. 833-4VALDEZ. Happy to have this conversation with you. And I want to continue our discussions and our calls. Let us go to Matt, Eastern North Carolina, WTKF. Matt, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir. Rich, how you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. Better than I sound.
Very good. Very good. Well, okay, but that's fine. But a few quick points if I may.
Mm-hmm.
There's weirdos in the UK. There's weirdos in the UK screaming that God is trans. Disgusting. Number one.
Yeah, I agree.
And number two, I believe we had a caller in California named Josh. I might have the name wrong.
No, yeah,
earlier.
I think that was his name. Josh called a little while ago. Good call.
Right. And he said, we need to focus on what's positive, not these weirdos trying to drag us down. That's number two. And number three, I had a most excellent gift today in the mailbox called a Trump 2024 flag. Isn't that
Cool.
great?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say you got like a tax refund or something else. That's even better.
Oh, no. Well, because there's my friend, I won't even mention any names, but would have cost me $60, but I got it for free. I think you know who he is without me. I don't have to say any words.
Well, I'm glad that you've got a Trump flag that you like. I hope that you display it loud and proud and do what you got to do. And I think you're right. These UK crazies are crazies. And I do try to focus on the positive and keep things kind of lighthearted. It's kind of my personality. I'm not, doom and gloom. But I can't help but hear these crazies and talk about them. I feel like it's incumbent upon us, not just me, just all of us, to have this conversation, because otherwise these things kind of go under the rug, and then people don't know that these crazies exist. So then it's kind of like, oh, come on, they're not bothering anybody. What do you mean they're not bothering anybody? They're in the streets saying God is trans. That bothers me. At least it offends me. And I have to say, if they're allowed to have an opinion, I better be allowed to have an opinion, right? You better be allowed to have an opinion. We all better be allowed to have an opinion, because it can't be a one-way street, right? If you're going to do you, I'm going to do me. And that's how it's going to be. And this is why I just can't let certain things slide, because we have to call out that stuff that is, right? On my podcast, quick plug for the podcast called This Is America with Rich Valdez. Been doing it for years, and it's a shorter version of this show and doesn't usually have guests on. It's just my commentary. But I always end the show with two refrains, one from Lord Acton and Sir Edmund Burke, and one from attributed to Thomas Jefferson, or excuse me, Thomas Jefferson, or Hamilton rather, and it is that the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people like us to do nothing, and the other is that if we stand for nothing, we'll fall for anything. And to me, those two things are incredibly true. And that's why I don't let anything slide, right? If I see it out there in the news, I'm going to bring it out, even if it's not positive, because I think it's so important that we call it out for the future generations, for those who are making this country go round, right? For those that are in their cars going to work, coming back from work, those that are at work, doing all of these things that many of us don't do, right? And we all have a job, but not everybody's out there at this hour of the night, on their grind doing their job. So there's a lot of people, millions of people that listen to the show that I feel, are busy at work, and they're not able to put in all the research or watch all the programs or do what it is, because they're busy working, taking care of their families, doing what they do. And it's only fair to them, right, that we have these conversations and bring it to light. Anyway, that's where I'm at with that one, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you got it, brother. Well, thank you for the call. I agree. And I think, yes, a great call from Josh, and Godspeed to you, brother. Big shout out to everybody listening on WTKF. Love everybody in Eastern North Carolina. And we're going to continue with the rest of your calls straight ahead. Plus, I want you to hear what this woman says. She says that dating is outdated, right? The way that you and I have been dating, like if you meet a nice young lady and you say, hey, look, let me take you to dinner. I'd like to get to know you better. Or if you say, hey, maybe I could take you to a movie. This is all wrong, and she does not want to go out with you. So anyway, we're going to get to your calls and more and continue our journey across the country. 8334-VALDEZ, 8334-VALDEZ. I am Rich Valdez, and we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, welcome back. It's me, Rich Valdez. Some of you know me as Richie V. I used to be Mr. Call Screener on the Mark Levin Show. Great mentor of mine, Mark Levin. And I'm going to get to your calls momentarily. I see we got calls from Colorado, from Delaware, and from Arizona. We're definitely going to get to you guys momentarily. Stick with me. Don't go anywhere. I just want to play this audio of this clip that I heard a woman. It's called 8 at the Table Podcast. It's really interesting. They have a podcast that they do, and they put clips online. And one of the clips was a guest of theirs that was discussing dating. And I'm going to let you hear it. I'm not going to do too much setup here. But it was a very interesting take that she had on dating. And I said, you know what? I've got to share this with this amazing audience because it was a take that, I almost felt slighted, right? She started talking about steak and all sorts. And I love steak. You give me a beautiful woman and a steak. That's like a date, to remember for the ages. But anyway, I want you to hear this woman on the 8 at the Table podcast.
That's just how some guys know how to date. But they think that it's restaurants.
They don't have nothing else.
Restaurants after restaurants.
No, that's it. That they don't have nothing else. All they want to do, and I think if we're talking about stuff that's outdated, you taking me to a restaurant for the first few dates is very outdated. If we're just meeting up, I don't want to go to the movies. I don't want to go to a restaurant. I don't want to do any of these things as a first date because that's not me getting to know you. That's not us having genuine conversations, especially if we go to the movies. Like, what we gonna do? Talk about how we want our steak cooked? Cool. But like, it'll be better if we have time to like, yo, I like to run. I like to work out. Let's go for a walk. Let's go to the gym. Like, I'd much rather do that than go out to a restaurant.
Yo, I love that answer. But
I disagree. I hate that answer. Now, listen, I don't, it's not a strong disagree. It's like a moderate disagree. I understand what she's saying. She'd like an outing, a different activity. She doesn't want something where it's kind of confined to the activity of the dinner. I understand her point. The problem is I tried to put myself in my own shoes. And when I did that, I was like, I don't want to go and ask a girl, hey, do you want to go running with me or take a walk with me? That is so cheesy. Again, now listen, if you're listening to this show and you're like, you know what, Rich, you are off your game, bro. You were so off your game. You had better take me out to a walking path or to a track where you can go running. I don't know. Let me know at 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. I want to know what your thoughts are on this dating stuff. But I can tell you, I think going to dinner and having a steak and getting to know somebody over small talk or whatever kind of conversation you can make. Listen, I make conversation all day long. It's what I do. I can make conversation with the best of them, I think. So it doesn't matter to me where we do it. But talk about a good steak? Come on. How are you going to put down a good steak? And by the way, I like mine medium if we're at a steakhouse. If we're at like a restaurant that, may or may not be a steakhouse, then I'll probably go medium well. But you got to be careful because sometimes you go medium well and they bring you this hockey puck with no blood in it. And then it's not tender, it's not soft, it doesn't have the right flavor, and it's just incredibly overcooked. So you got to be very cautious there. But that's my thinking here is I want to know what are your thoughts on this first date. Now, some of you are thinking, look, Rich, I've been married for 60 years. I get that. But what are your thoughts on this? I want to know what you think because I think it's a great idea to go out to have a steak or whatever dinner, But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to, lose a few more pounds and start saying, hey, listen, shorty, I want to take you for a jog. Let's go. I don't know. You let me know if I'm right or wrong on this one. 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's get to your calls here. Let's go to Eddie in Durango, Colorado, KDGO. Eddie, what's up? You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Rick, I really enjoy the show, but I just wanted to make a comment about this race and identification.
Sure. Well, before you get to race, tell me about the steak date. What do you think about that?
I would say see you later and walk out the door.
What's that?
Have a nice day. I'd say see you later and walk out the door.
Yeah, I got you.
See ya. And I would go to another another pond and do some fishing elsewhere.
I hear you. All right, now tell me, what are your thoughts on race?
So, if you read the Bible, and which I do, throughout the Bible, King David and so many others, Jesus Christ, they use race as a way of identifying the Samaritans, for example. Jesus said at the well of Samaria, and he spoke to the Samaritan woman. So, and also, if you call the police and you say, that there was a perpetrator, and
he just got robbed by a really tall guy, right? Yeah, right.
They're not going to say, well, what kind of shoes was he wearing? The first thing they ask is, what race is he? So I guess all the police departments in the United States are racist. Is that right?
Well, there's a good group of people that'll say that. That's for sure.
And you know what's going to happen if you identify somebody as a girl? Are we going to now be racist because we called somebody a girl instead of their bi gender or whatever it is? So it's getting so absurd. If you have a group of four white guys and one black guy, and you can't identify the man as a man or woman as a black man, that's not being racist. It's just a way of identifying somebody. So it's just so ludicrous that people have become so oversensitive. It's just, that's just my opinion.
No, I'm with you. Listen, I think racial identifiers are real, and they become more real when you do this work that I do, right? For example, you can't see me, right? People all over the country, when they meet me in real life, they're like, wow, I didn't picture you looking like this. They have no idea what I look like. But when they see me, they're like, oh my gosh. And this is why I try to clue people in and tell them I'm a bald guy with a beard. I like hip hop music. My parents are Puerto Rican, so this way, when you cross me in the street, hey, look, there's that bald Puerto Rican guy who talks on the radio. Because otherwise you'd have no idea. You need descriptions. And race is one of the descriptors that we use in life. And it's just beyond me how we try so hard to go above and beyond to do, quote unquote, the right thing, that we do the wrong thing. And we do an ineffective job at things sometimes because we're just throwing the baby out with the bathwater in many ways. But Eddie, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that you enjoy the show, and I appreciate your call. Great comment. And big shout out to everybody in Durango, Colorado. KDGO, another great station, and I'm happy that you joined the program. Let us continue. Where do we go from here? I want to go to Doc in Wilmington, Delaware, WDEL. Now, Doc was on with us on Friday and saying that he had to go with Biden because Biden's the best choice on foreign policy. Doc, welcome back.
I have to give you an apology. I want to talk about race in a minute. I have to give you an apology on national radio right now.
Why is that?
After the comments he's made about Ukraine not joining NATO because it's not time yet, I can't support Joe Biden for the presidency. And on balance, you were right all the way live, and I'm wrong. Every single Republican candidate has called him to task on that comment. Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, and Tim Scott have all come to task on that comment. So for me this year, it's ABB, anybody but Biden, or ABD, anybody but a Democrat. I just can't go that way, Rich. I can't go that way this year. And for 2024,
thank God you must have had some Cuban coffee, Doc.
Yes, and number two, about race. Here's the deal. Delaware is a very schizoid state. In my county, we only have 3 counties. Northernmost county is called Newcastle. That's where I live. We're very cosmopolitan. We're part of the Northeast. Everybody's thrown together. We all get along. Our 2 southern counties are more like the South, American South, than they are the Northeast, but we still get along down there. In my building here in northern Delaware, I am one of 2 white people. The other white person is a gay female. All my neighbors are minorities. Across all from me is a Mexican-American couple with a lovely young little girl. We have a couple of the Arab immigrants. He is studying or teaching at our university here. He's a wonderful guy. He's a wonderful lady. I've had their food. I've had the Mexican food. All the rest of my neighbors in my building are black, and we all get along. That's my story. I think that if you make I think the stuff of this racial stuff, and both sides are playing it. Part of the Trump base are almost Confederates, and the Democrats have been playing, as you know, Rich, identity politics for way too long. I think we have to give up this racial kick and just be Americans. Just to be Americans and just forget about the rest of it.
100% on that. And listen, and I go a step further. I know a lot of people take exception. I think we are all Americans. But if you want to tell me that you like bratwurst or you like kielbasa because you're a German American or a Polish American or whatever, God bless you. I love diversity. I really do. I being brought up the way I was, my mom, born in Puerto Rico, she cooked like Puerto Ricans do. Now, some people might look at Hispanic food overall and go, yeah, Cubans, they eat rice and beans. The Mexicans eat rice and beans. The Dominicans eat rice and beans. But I'll tell you, I can differentiate all of these cuisines, and I enjoy all of them. I go to Mexican restaurants. I go to Dominican restaurants. I love going to Puerto Rican restaurants. They're hard to find. And my Cuban restaurant's the go-to because it's the closest one to me. But they're all different. They all have different flavor, all different sazon, if you will, a little different type of sofrito. And I enjoy them all. And I think it's okay to enjoy them all. It's okay to say you're an American of this descent or that heritage and whatever. It's okay to be all different and all the same, in my opinion. But, Doc, I appreciate the apology. I'm glad that you're seeing things for what they are with foreign policy with our man, Joe El Baboso Biden. Hopefully he doesn't get a second term. And yes, anybody but him would do a good job. I'm voting for you, Doc, if you run. Anyway, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Big shout out to everybody on WDEL. Now, I want to continue. Do I continue or do I pause? Okay, they're telling me I have to pause. I wanted to continue because you guys are terrific, and we've got calls from all over. And I want to get to you, and we're gonna get to as many of these as we can. So we're gonna keep them brief, but get everybody in. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Continuing with your phone calls, Open Phone America, 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. Let's go to Carol, Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Carol, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
I'm an older lady, so I don't know about the younger trends, but I do know that I was appreciated. A man taking me out to dinner, for one thing. It means that he's not totally cheap. Also, you can see how, and I've heard this from other ladies, you can see how he treats waiters and waitresses. Does he belittle them? Does he treat them with respect? And that will show how he might treat you later. And also you can see how if he tips, does he feel like tipping, is appropriate or not? You don't know if that's the kind of man you want to be with. And personally, I wouldn't want to walk alone with somebody I just met.
Outstanding analysis. I love that, Carol. You're right. Is this guy El Creepo who wants to walk with you in some park? Is he El Rudo with the way he treats the waitresses and the other wait staff? And is he El Cheapo? How is he, tipping? Excellent points. I listen, I agree. I want to put my best foot forward when I go on a date in all of those areas because I think that those are still important things. So leave it to your wisdom and those pearls of wisdom that you just shared with us to put a little clarity on that. Thank you, Carol in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Excellent point. Let's continue. Where do we go from here? We go to Pat in Sedona, Arizona, listening online. Rich Valdez, AmericaAtNight.com. Pat, go right ahead quickly.
Hey, Rich, how you doing? How you and that great head of hair you doing?
I am so wonderfully coiffed over here. Thank God.
Yeah, I love that commercial. Hey, you know what? You are my friend. You're not my Latino friend. You are my friend. You're my American friend. I just want you to know that. I'm not a racist guy. I love you. I grew up with people from Mexico where I grew up in Colorado, so I have no problem. I love diversity just like you. Amen. First thing I wanted to talk to you about is this transgender thing. I find that when you're an adult, you live your life as long as it's within the law, the way you want, so be it. But when they go after our children, it disgusts me. Our kids at certain ages have no real idea what their sexual identity is, and they prey upon that. And I just don't like that. I mean, there's a story about a girl that was playing volleyball in South Carolina back east, and a trans boy, was playing on the girls' team, recognized himself as a girl. He hit a ball about 90 miles an hour. It hit her in the head.
Wow.
And now she has permanent brain damage. Boys playing girls' sports is wrong. Any way you can say it's wrong. You could go into college saying it's wrong too, but in schools, kids under 18 or 21, leave them alone.
Pat, you're so right on this. And I mean, thank you for that, because Riley Gaines brought that up in the first hour of the program tonight. She was spot on with this stuff. We have to call things out the way they are. And you just can't pretend that these are not real issues. People will get hurt at the professional level, and not in UFC, but at other mixed martial arts. I'd seen a male MMA fighter transition to female and then had a fight and fractured this woman's skull. The orbital bone just really messed her up. A male dressed or identifying as a female and just absolutely destroyed a female competitor in a mixed martial arts match. So you're right. I appreciate the comment. I think you're spot on. Big shout out to you, Pat, in Arizona. You are my friend. I love you. And we're coming right back with the rest of your calls straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, we're going to swing it over to Vero Beach, Florida, WTTB, great affiliate. John, Vero Beach, go right ahead, John.
Oh, Rich, it's always a pleasure. Your show is just fantastic, brilliant.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. I once was supervised by a gentleman by the name of Henry Gilbert at a nuclear construction site, and he was the head quality control engineer of the whole site with 20 or 30 inspectors under him. And he was a person of color, and everybody never even thought about color. He was brilliant, a brilliant man. He could pull up all the TNCFR codes, the ANZA codes, ASME, all the engineering stuff right out of his head. And everybody loved him because he instilled that we were a team. We were all fellow human beings, and that's the way we thought of him.
100%, John. I think you're nailing it right there. That's exactly how it is. And should you ever need to make mention of his racist, then you do that if you need to. But ultimately, what sets us apart is how we deliver, right? And what we do and what we accomplish. And I couldn't agree with you more. Now, again, if you had to say our colleague so-and-so, and you're describing him to somebody and you happen to mention he was black, I wouldn't sue you, because I think that this is something that sometimes you just need to do, especially in the radio world. You know, how do you tell a story if they can't see you? You use a lot of description. Anyway, John, thank you very much for the call. Big shout out to everybody in Vero Beach, WTTB in the building. Let's go to Jane, Saratoga, New York, to take us home, WGY. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. Yeah, I just wanted to, well, first of all, I wanted to say all the people who have called in, the gentleman who said he wants to have a Christian approach, and the gentleman who called to apologize, that's what our world is supposed to be about. People like
Amen.
that.
And thank God we're having that conversation here on America at Night.
It's been incredible, and just that's what we all need to do. Now, like the Mexican family that was jumped on, what I would do, I'd walk over and sit down with them and say, hey, how are you guys doing? It looks like you're having fun. And look at the lady who's yelling and say, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Right. Looks like you're not having fun. Crazy lady, racist, non-racist. Anyway, thanks, Jane. I appreciate it. The music means they're kicking us out. But the next show is coming in, so stay on this station, and I'll be back again tomorrow. Take care, good night, and God bless. Hasta la próxima. I'm Rich Valdez.